We are here with Cindy and Rich Kern from Cardinal Farms to see how they are transforming their pole barn into a fruit and vegetable wash pack facility. In this video, they talked to Rachel Burns with the Michigan Department of Great Lakes and Energy, also known as EGLE, and formerly known as DEQ. Rachel gives them some helpful advice on how to handle their wash water discharge before they begin building their new wash pack.
So at this point in the construction of our wash pack, we are at the point where we're ready to start committing some resources to the actual construction, which is exciting for us. But we want to be sure that we do things right the first time.
Correct.
And so wastewater is definitely a concern. We want to be sure that we are being environmentally responsible as well as producing a great product. So we started doing research to figure out what the guidelines were and talk to other farmers, and what we found was that there was no straight answer like there are for some other things. But through Michigan On-Farm Produce Safety, we were able to be connected with Rachel Burns, who is here to talk to us about kind of what the general guidance is, what the general compliance is, and then we'll be able to use that to ensure that our wash pack is up to par.
I'm Rachel Burns with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. I'm one of the compliance staff. I'm actually out of the Jackson District office, but there are staff just like me throughout the state. And we oversee the compliance with the groundwater discharge permits.
So I think maybe that's a first question is how does a producer go about just getting in touch with the right person for this topic?
Oh, definitely, yeah, and we know it can be very difficult, can be very confusing trying to figure out, do I need to reach out to the state, do I need to reach out to the local health department? So that's part of our goal here, is to just kind of raise awareness about this groundwater discharge permit associated with these wash plants. The permit is applicable for any facilities that have produce wash water. There's no minimum flow volume associated with it, so if you're doing any kind of produce wash, there is actually a permit that is supposed to be held by the farm through the state of Michigan. So we'll talk a little bit later about how to reach out to your local compliance staff person with the state of Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy to get additional information on that.
So Rachel, what should a farm's first steps be in this process, and what should we be ready to experience?
So the first thing we recommend, of course, is, like I said, to reach out to your local compliance person so that they can start asking you some questions and get a feel for what type of wash water you're going to be producing. The farm needs to be ready to answer some questions about what the estimated volume of wastewater is going to be, or wash water in this case, what's going to be included in the wash water. So if you're using any kind of sanitizers, any kind of soaps or other products in there, the type of products that you're washing. So the compliance staff person is going to ask you those types of questions so that they can get a feel for what type of wastewater they might be looking at, and then they're going to help you through the process of either applying for a groundwater discharge permit with the state of Michigan or applying for an exemption with the state of Michigan.
What if we have a small wash pack in our garage right now, so we're already discharging water, but we don't have a permit yet? What's our process there? What's our next step?
If you're in that situation, I strongly recommend that you reach out to your local compliance staff person so they can chat with you. There's some potential that there may be some additional paperwork, some additional steps that are required to come into compliance with the permit. But our big goal is we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of this permit requirement and just help all the different farms to make sure that they're taking care of that wastewater appropriately.
So talking about the permit, I think that was one of my concerns, was is this going to be a huge application? Is it going to take months and months? So what is that whole application process like? And should I be afraid or no?
Well, I know no one likes paperwork. There is unfortunately some paperwork associated with it, of course. We do have all of our applications now go through a database called My Waters, which is online electronic, so it's a little bit easier having it all online. Usually the form doesn't take too much more than a couple of hours to fill out, especially what I recommend to folks is to pull up the application form beforehand, look at the questions. That way, once you're ready to fill it out, it'll make it a lot easier because you know what information you need to pull together to answer those questions. And then it depends what type of permit you'd be looking at. If it's a simple permit, simple discharge, those can often be issued within just a couple of months. If it's a larger system, that may take several more months.
Okay, so you should anticipate 2 to maybe up to even 6 months?
I would say, to be on the safe side, anywhere maybe from 2 to 10 months, depending on the system.
That's good to know.
So Rachel, is there a cost associated with the permit process?
So there's no cost associated with the permit application itself. That application is free. Where the cost usually comes in is that once a permit is issued, there is an annual fee associated with that. For the 2211 permit that is generally issued for produce wash water, it's $200 per year. But sometimes, depending on the size and the type of wastewater that a farm is producing, it may go into a different permit category, which would have a different annual permit fee associated with it.
So here at Cardinal Farms, we work really hard to try and grow our produce and raise our animals in a way that's environmentally responsible. And so in talking about wastewater and its discharge, what are some of the consequences to the environment if we didn't do that in a responsible way?
Oh, certainly, yeah, and that's actually a big reason of why the permit exists, because we just want to make sure that that wastewater is being discharged responsibly. One of the biggest concerns, especially as facilities get a little bit larger and the volume of wash water increases, is that many of the existing systems may be attached to a home's septic tank drain field. And if that's the case, it can actually overwhelm the septic tank drain field in some cases and lead to failure of the system, which of course is a concern, because we don't want our wastewater system for our toilets and our bathrooms at home to be failing on us. It might mean that we have untreated sewage rising to the soil surface, where of course anyone can have contact with it and could have bad health consequences. The other things that we sometimes see with produce wash water too is that we just want to be careful and make sure that we're protecting our groundwater resources. So the groundwater rules are written with several things in mind. The primary one is that we want to make sure that any discharges aren't causing nuisance or hazardous conditions to ourselves or to any of our neighbors. So making sure that the water is being discharged onto our own property, onto the ground that we own or have control over. We don't want to have any situation where we have standing water on the ground surface for a long time that may allow flies to breed or something like that, where it could again be a nuisance or potential health hazard. The other thing too, of course, is with groundwater, we want to make sure that we're protecting our drinking water supply. So many farms are going to be located in areas where the water is coming from a well. Of course, that's
us.
Yep, that's serving everything that you do here as well. You know, that's water that you're spraying onto the crops. So you want to make sure that that water is safe to go onto the crops that are then being sold to people, and that the water in your own home is going to be safe.
If we use sanitizer in our wash water, are there any special considerations we have to think about in regards to the wastewater if we use that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things, of course, that you'll want to keep in mind with any kind of sanitizers or other additives that are being added to the wash water. The first one is just to make sure that you're looking at the product that you're using and seeing if it has any instructions that say it can't be discharged to the ground, or that it may pose a risk to aquatic life, or something of that nature, so that you know any kind of special safety precautions that you need to take with that material. Of course, you always want to use it at label rate, so you don't want to be using more than is recommended or using it for purposes that it's not created for.
And the only other type of water, we don't have any like bathroom facilities out here, we don't plan to, but we will of course have a hand washing station. Yep. So what would be the guidance in regards to wastewater from a hand washing station?
So generally, things that are associated with hygiene, like sinks that are being used for washing hands, toilets, those types of things, those are generally considered to be sanitary waste, something that needs to go to a defined wastewater treatment system. Now, in the situation with produce wash, if that sink is only being used for activities associated with the produce washing, so just for washing your hands after or before you've been washing the produce, then that is actually considered part of the produce wash water and can be permitted as part of the discharge. If however there is a bathroom, that's even if it was say in your washing building like this, if there was a bathroom in here and then a sink next to that bathroom, in that case that's not going to be getting, that would be considered sanitary sewage, because that sink is not being used just for the produce washing. It's actually being used for hygiene purposes. Chances are that it could include things, like fecal materials from when you're using the bathroom. So in that case, that would be sanitary sewage, and that would be permitted or regulated by the local health department.
Well, this has been incredibly helpful, especially because we're just starting out and we haven't actually spent any of our resources on building out the wash pack, and our goal is to do it right the first time.
Yes, we always say better to reach out first. We will get you information so that then you can make the best money choices for your farm and for your operation, so that you're not putting that money into something that maybe is not going to work or be appropriate.
And that your goal is to work with producers and farmers. I don't have to be worried that I'm going to get fined the minute I call, that really the idea is that we're working together in order to be able to, care for the environment and ensure that we're producing food that is safe for our customers.